Good to see you all. I need to explain a little something about Jeff Fried's session from yesterday in order to continue a theme. And if you didn't see it, I highly recommend you see it because he's sitting right over there. So I'm going to say that for sure. But he compared Iris to a Formula E race car. So he apparently has a passion for Formula E racing, electronic race cars. So he compared Iris and Iris for Health to a Formula E race car because it's fast, it's safe, and it's innovative. So I think that's a good analogy. He compared all of you, our customers, to the drivers of the Formula E car, and he compared us, InterSystems, to your pit crew. So I'm going to continue that analogy and talk about the Formula E steering wheel, or race car steering wheel. However, I grew up in Indiana, which, for those of you from outside the UK and those of you from Massachusetts, Indiana is near the Great Lakes. So it's out in the middle of the country, but it has the Indianapolis 500. So I'm a little more familiar with the IndyCar. And inside the Indianapolis Speedway is this fantastic museum that traces the history of racing, of IndyCar racing, and IndyCar racing in the United States. And the thing that I found so fascinating about that museum is that you look at the cars where they started, and they look nothing like the race cars today. Everything, the tires, the body, the seats, the seat belts, of course, but particularly the console and the information that is available inside that steering console, that steering wheel. So this is the diagram of the Formula E steering wheel, and it's really a combination of insight and control. And I think that's really interesting. The original steering wheels were actually wheels, right? But what they've done over time is built on that history, and now the driver has insight inside that wheel about the health of the car and even health of the driver. So that they're monitoring everything about what's going on as they're running their race. And at its best, analytics provides a window into the past, information about what's happening right now, and a prediction of what's going to happen in the future. At InterSystems, we're working on building on our history of managing complex transactional data and bringing additional analytic capabilities and analytical insights that can be delivered along with the applications that you're all building. So over the next period, next about 30 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you what we've been up to over the last about 18 months or so in terms of analytics, and talk a little bit about what's coming, what you can trial now. As Mike said, I'm Carmen Logue. I'm a product manager on our InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health team. So I'm going to spend the bulk of this time talking about the innovations and things that we're bringing to InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health. But I'll also spend a little time talking about what my customers, HealthShare and TrackCare, my internal customers, are doing as well, and how they're also incorporating some of these additions that we've added in Iris and incorporating that into those platforms as well. So before I do that, let me talk a little bit about the strategy that we have across all of those products. So we are primarily, what we do is we want to bring innovation across the entire portfolio. And so we will bring things into Iris as the development platform to trial them there and to allow our customers to trial them there as well. And then where it makes sense, TrackCare and HealthShare will bring those into those applications. So that's our general strategy. An example of that is something like integrated ML, which first was offered with Iris, and then both HealthShare and TrackCare evaluated that. We do have counter examples of that too, where sometimes the HealthShare and TrackCare teams are closer to the customer and understand a need before we do. And so reports is an example of that, where TrackCare actually brought reports in first, and then we brought that into the platform. So it does happen both ways. So I'm going to start with a few things, the new and updated products in InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health. So starting with our SQL dialect, because we've made a lot of changes in the SQL dialect over the last year to year and a half or so to support analytical queries. And we're doing some really exciting things. And Benjamin DeBow has a session a little bit later this morning that's going to dive into this in a lot more detail. But just to give you a little bit of information about what we've been working on, we've added window functions, which allows you to bring in aggregate data as well as other data inside the same SQL statement. So this, doing things like a maximum value or an average value included there. Now this would be something that previously would have had to be done inside the BI tool, or would have been done with a series of SQL statements. So by bringing that all together, we bring that calculation much closer to the data and therefore can do things faster, better, more efficiently. The SQL loader allows you to bring in sample data from the SQL command line, so either a JDBC or CSV source for that. So that allows you to get up and running quite more quickly with sample data. And then we've done a lot of things that are really kind of behind the scenes, but allow us to optimize your queries as they come in, make better decisions about how we run those. So it's nothing that you would have to change or do. Use the same SQL queries, and we're going to optimize those behind the scenes. So there's a lot of work that's gone into that over the last 18 months to support those analytical queries. And that underlines a lot of what we've been able to do with reporting and business intelligence in particular. The next thing I'll talk about is integrated ML. We initially launched integrated ML as only available to selected customers as a trial kind of thing. And now I'm happy to say it's part of all IRIS and IRIS for Health implementation. It's optionally deployed, but it's part of all of our licenses, all of our IRIS and IRIS for Health licenses. And the idea of integrated ML is really quite simple. It's targeted to the SQL developer, and we've provided the ability from the SQL command line to, first of all, create a model and identify what kind of insight you'd like to create, train that model on a set of data, and then execute that model to bring back insights directly again from in the SQL command line so that you can pull those insights out. So as I said, targeted to that SQL developer, and one of the reasons that we've included integrated ML in all of our IRIS licenses is because we think that this is going to become a tool that will just be another tool that you'll be able to use all the time. So we think it should be available to everyone. The thing that's next with integrated ML, it's coming quite soon, is time series modeling. And that's something that we heard from a lot of our initial customers is something that they wanted to see, is to be able to show those predictions over the axis of time. So that's something, we got a lot of feedback about that. That's something that is coming quite soon. The other thing I'll mention about integrated ML is we've recently added that as a cloud service. So it allows people to get started with IRIS SQL and integrated ML from a cloud service. We've used this quite effectively in a number of hackathons where we can turn up people quite quickly. So that's a good way for you to trial this functionality without actually needing to install anything else. So I'll talk a little bit at the end about some of the early access program capabilities we have and how you sign up for that. And you'll hear me say early access probably about 5 more times. So InterSystems IRIS BI is something that's been part of our solution for a very long time. If you've been around for a little while, you probably know it as DeepSea. And we've been focused over the last 18 months really on these 3 key areas. The engine performance, we've done a lot of kind of low-level engine performance that had really good results from our internal benchmarks. And so I think that if you're upgrading to IRIS, one of the 2021 or 2022 releases, almost everyone should see some performance improvements there in queries that you're already running. In terms of scalability, we changed from the DeepSea Task Manager to the IRIS Work Manager, so that allows us to really use IRIS as a whole in order to manage multiple things going on, multiple queues. And finally, we added a few safeguards from the IRIS BI UI So things like pivot preview. So when you're in a pivot table within Iris BI, we've done some things to safeguard you from sort of runaway queries. We just show kind of the top level of data there to help you see what it's going to look like and then decide if you want to run it. So a couple of things like that really around protecting people from themselves. So Iris BI is a great choice if you are looking to embed pivot tables or analytical components, dashboard components, into your applications as you build them. So that's what its best use case is for. InterSystems reports we added about roughly 2 years ago to the Iris license. So it is included in almost all Iris licenses. It's an optional component though, so if you want to enable it, you do have to ask to enable it. It's deployed separately. And it's designed to deliver historical reports to lots of people. So it's very effective for delivering reporting information as email and CSV and Excel format, lots of different formats, and it provides this nice design environment. There's really two components to InterSystems reports. One of them is called the designer, and that's really the kind of the cockpit, the place where you do all your design for the reports, lay it out, all that sort of thing. And there's the server, which is where the majority of people will go for self-service of reports. And from there, they can run reports, they can schedule reports, they can export them in lots of other formats, have it run on a daily basis so they get something in their email box or published to a server somewhere on a regular basis. So it's a great solution for that. Some of the things we've done since the initial release a couple of years ago are to really work around on the integration or the implementation, so the installation process, as well as better integration with InterSystems Iris. So for example, we automatically create the configuration database on Iris as part of the installation now. So a number of things there that we've added. And because I'm pretty sure that not a lot of you have seen InterSystems reports yet, I thought I would do just a very short, video that I'll talk through as to give you a sense of what it is, just a real quick sense. And so what you're seeing on the screen right now is the designer. So you can see this is a report, and from that designer I can obviously edit text, I can move things around. I've got in that report some buttons for my end users to be able to click on an Excel or CSV export. I can pull in components from that center panel there, things like filters, QR codes, all that kind of stuff can be pulled in and placed onto the canvas. And then when I'm happy with the design, I can flip over to that view screen, which then actually executes the query. So it's going to look exactly like what it will look like to the end user. So I can scroll around in there, I can look at that and make sure it looks right. If it doesn't look right, I can flip back to the design, continue working on it, flip back and forth there as much as I want. When I do reports, it's usually quite a lot. But then once I'm ready with that report, I then publish it to the server, and I can publish it to a folder if I want to, for example, do maybe a little more beta testing with it. I can publish it to a private folder, or if it's ready to go to a larger group of people, I can publish that to one of my public folders. Okay? So now I'm going to flip over to the server, so you can see what that interface looks like. And I'm going to go into the report, and depending on my permissions there, I can run that report. I can do some additional editing, obviously some filtering if I want to look at something a little bit differently. Or I can also schedule that report to run as a one-time or to run on a regular basis. And what I'm going to select here is to have it run on a daily basis. So you'll be able to see that. So I'm going to run it on a daily basis. I'm going to distribute it in email, and I'm going to distribute it in this case as both Excel. I'm going to have two files, an Excel and an HTML view of it as well. And then it's going to email it to me if it for some reason fails. So that just gives you kind of I think a quick sense of what's available with InterSystems reports. And as I said, that's something that's available with most of the InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health licenses. The next thing I'll talk about is adaptive analytics, which is a capability that we added in about a little over a year ago now. And this was a co-development effort with InterSystems and a company named AtScale. So we worked together to develop this integrated solution. And adaptive analytics really provides two key things. The first one is a semantic layer. So what that means is it keeps all the data in Iris, but it provides a layer that defines the data in a way that makes sense to BI users. And that, when I say BI users, that would be people using your off-the-shelf tools, including Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Power BI, Tableau, Looker, and one thing that we've added, InterSystems Reports actually is one of those BI tools as well. So it provides a set of calculated measures. It provides definitions of that data, so you're not exposing the database field names. You can organize it, structure it into folders. So it provides kind of a very nice view that's targeted to the end BI user. Okay, so that takes care of what would have previously maybe been done by extracting data into those tools and creating your own calculations. So you've got somebody over here in Excel who's created one calculation, somebody over here in Tableau created a different calculation, and of course they don't match, right, even though they're supposed to. So what we're doing with this semantic layer is presenting a view that allows you to kind of simplify and make consistent that view that's available to the self-serve analytics community. The second thing that adaptive analytics provides is it creates aggregated data in Iris based on looking at what the source data looks like in Iris and the kinds of queries that are coming in from those BI tools. So it's going to take information like what kind of queries are being asked. If, for example, we're always seeing queries that are asking for monthly summary, I'm going to create probably a monthly aggregate table. It's going to create that behind the scenes that captures that data. So now you've just got 12 rows instead of the number of rows that you have when you're storing things hourly, for example. So it does that automatically behind the scenes. And if I ask for a max value, it's smart enough to know to also store a min and maybe an average as well. So it's going to do all of that behind the scenes, constantly monitoring those aggregates for usage to eliminate the ones that aren't being used and to build more as additional queries come in. So it kind of learns from that process. So those are the two key areas. And this is something that adaptive analytics we've added as an add-on to InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health. And again, I've made a fairly simple demo to give you a sense of what that looks like as well. A couple of things that we've added since that initial release, I mentioned InterSystems Reports has been added as a possible BI tool, so you can use that and it will see the same set of definitions as well. And then we've also added some interplay between Iris BI and adaptive analytics. So we've added the ability to export a physical cube from Iris BI and bring that into the adaptive analytics data model as a way to get started with it. We're experimenting with some of that as well. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is obviously a Tableau dashboard. But I want to point out along that left-hand side there, you can see kind of a folder structure. That's what I'm talking about in terms of organizing the data. So the data that's in there are some of the metrics and attributes that we've created as part of that virtual semantic layer inside of adaptive analytics. So this is a Tableau set of dashboards that actually lay out different styles over time. So you can see we've got a range of styles there. And the view that you're seeing now is actually two things. It's an estimated order quantity against the actual order quantity. And you can see we're off on a few of those. We're a little bit off on our estimate. So I'm now going back into the adaptive analytics canvas, and I've got in the middle there, that's a fact table, and then hanging off of that are some dimensions. And over on the right-hand side, we've got a set of measures. And inside that measures, I've got something called an estimated number of orders. But we've added now a revised estimate, because we've got the data now from the year to date. So now we can make a better estimate. So I'm going to actually build that virtual model now that I have that new calculation in there. And once I build that, and it's very fast because it's virtual, and once I build that, I can go back to Tableau and refresh that data. And then you can, if you look carefully down on the lowest panel on the left, you'll see I have estimated order quantity, and I'm going to add now, as soon as I refresh that data, I have a revised estimate. And then when I'll pull that revised estimate into the canvas to make sure that I want to check that as well. And we have now proved that if you know all the data, you can accurately predict to 100%. So we've seen the data from this year so far. Now our predictions match that. But what that means is that going forward, I'm going to have a better estimate because it's based on what the patterns that I'm seeing today. I'm going to be able to estimate that. So the next thing we're adding with adaptive analytics is the ability to provide that same semantic layer, that information, to the AI user. So, and it's a feature called AI Link that's added on top of adaptive analytics. And so now that really provides two things to that AI user. One is that they see that same semantic layer that the BI user sees. So they're going to get the same calculated measures. They're going to be able to see the kinds of things that they're looking at. But more importantly, they're going to be able to use that information, build their model, and then push data back, push estimates back and predictions back into Iris, and then therefore make that available to the BI user so that I can easily pull in that information into my dashboards and reports. So I think that's something we're pretty excited about seeing how that gets used, and so we have that in early field trial as well. So as I said, I'll show you how you sign up for that towards the end of the presentation. All right, so let me switch gears a little bit and talk about an innovation that we have for Iris for Health. So those of you who know about FHIR, you know what it is, but if you need to know more, you can go to Russ's session a little bit later today. And it's really, you can see it on the left-hand side of that screen. It's a directed graph of complex data. And so in the center of that, we have our patient. And this is a pretty realistic view of what a patient would look like with encounters and observations and appointments, lots of things hanging off of that patient. And it's designed really with the clinician in mind, and it's very flexible in terms of what data gets stored. The issue with that, if you're an analyst or an informatician, is that you're used to working with relational data, and all the tools that you use are also built around relational data. So something has to change in order for that to work. Either we have to change the tools that are doing that analysis, or we have to change the model into something that can work with those relational tools. So the latter is exactly what we're doing with the FHIR SQL Builder. So we're taking the FHIR data on the left-hand side and projecting that into what looks like a relational table. And the important point there is the projection. And because this is InterSystems Iris and we are multi-model, we have the ability to project that data without making a second copy of it. So we're projecting that as SQL, as relational, and so for all the tools, it will look as if it's a SQL table. It will look just like that, and they can work with it. So the way that the FHIR SQL Builder works is to evaluate the FHIR repository, take a look at how much data is there, what's there, present that back to the end user so they can get a sense for which data has come over as part of that, so it gives them some visibility. They choose which things they want to include in that model, and then we create the DDL, we create that SQL projection, and then now you can use that with your relational tools, all your BI tools. So, and then there's maintenance on that that allows you to go back and make changes to that as the FHIR data changes. So this is something, again, also available as in the preview program, in the early access program. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please sign up for that as well. So that's some of the things we've been doing in InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health. Let me talk a little bit now about how the HealthShare team has been working also to provide some additional analytics and AI capabilities, as well as incorporating some of the things I just talked about. So one of the things they've done is included InterSystems reports as an option for HealthShare as well, so you can use that with HealthShare. There's also been additional claims data, so automatically populating some things there like diagnoses. And then there's something that's also in early field trial. Let me see if I can get the name right. HealthShare Health Data De-Identifier. And that provides anonymization and pseudo-anonymization of healthcare data. So if that's something that's a need for you, also something that you can use in the early field trial. Again, we can sign up for that. There's UDC timestamps that have been added to provide better reporting across time zones. And then constant work on kind of improving ingestion performance, as well as system index, which is something that's going to be rolling out over the next few releases. So that's the HealthShare capabilities. With TrackCare, there's been, if you are a TrackCare user and you haven't yet heard about the Innovation Toolkit, I'd suggest you Google that. It's a really cool thing that runs kind of alongside TrackCare, where you can do some experimentation. So you've got your transactional system operating in production, and next to it you can do all kinds of innovation. Some of the customers are doing some interesting things with Fire. This is where you can do you can use some of the other capabilities that I mentioned that are available from Iris. You can do that side by side with the TrackCare data there, as well as they've done some work with adaptive analytics in that same sort of way. And then the second area that TrackCare is continuously using, they are probably our biggest user of Iris BI and reports. So there's constant work and constant innovation going on there in terms of bringing additional data into their reports and dashboards, as well as providing new dashboards when they have new functionality available as well. And then the last thing is something that I'll say is really kind of across our whole portfolio, HealthShare, TrackCare, and InterSystems Iris and Iris for Health, is we're working really hard to bring you new capabilities that allow you to embed insights into your application, but also to work with those third-party tools that we know are already in your customer's infrastructure already. So those third-party BI and AI tools that already exist. So that's a real fundamental focus for us. Now here it is. So this is the early access program. You can see we've got a number of things there. Columnar storage, I think, is the only one I didn't talk about. And that's something, again, that in Benjamin's session, there'll be a lot more about that. And is a new storage format for SQL data. So something we're pretty excited about. We think is going to have a big impact on analytical querying within Iris and Iris for Health. So please use the QR code. That'll be in the slides that you get after following the summit. And that'll take you to a web page where you can select which of these, one or more of these that you would like to participate in. And they are all in kind of different stages. Some of them have already been going for a little while. Some of them are just getting started. So to wrap it up, I hope that I've given you a really good sense of what kinds of things we've been working on and what things are right on the horizon and available to you as early access. But I'm going to come back around to that Formula E steering wheel. Because as you'll notice, the insights that are visible there, it's actually a really small space. And that's because as a Formula E driver, there's only so much that you really need and so much that you can consume in one go as you're driving the car. So I think one of the things I'd like to leave you with is this idea of really treating analytics insights in sort of equivalent to building applications. That as you're building those applications, let's do the hard work together of figuring out what our customers really need to see and presenting them in a way that works for them, that allows them to see where they've been, see what's happening right now, and then also predict what's happening in the future. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.